And a very happy Thursday to you at 12:08 in the West on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, it's the clip going around the world. California Senator Alex Padilla interrupting a press conference from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in Los Angeles, and he gets kicked out.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
And if you look on social media, half the country finds this video hilarious, and half the country is so offended by what happened. He's a senator.
Wait, they're offended that he got thrown out for disrupting a press conference?
Yes, they say it's un-American. Gavin Newsom is tweeting out the video with comments every few seconds. He's so mad about it.
Oh, he is such a sociopath. We'll get to him in a little bit. But first, let's talk about Alex Padilla. Alex Padilla, who before he was a U.S. Senator, was a Secretary of State here in California, was a state senator, was a member of the city council, and at one point was president of the city council.
Well, maybe that's why he thought it was okay, because city council meetings get disrupted every day.
Okay, yes, that's true, and point taken. But go back one step beyond that. This guy is an MIT-trained engineer. You ever met any engineers?
We work with some.
We do. These guys are usually pretty sedate. They know how to do math. They know how to fix things. They're the guys that keep the pens and the pencils in the pocket in their shirt. Engineers are a lot of things. They're not panelists on the Jerry Springer Show. If you've ever met an engineer, you have one in your family, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. What Alex Padilla did today reminds me of what used to happen at Dodger Stadium when the Dodgers would just show up and they'd be flat. One of those days where you played last night in Pittsburgh, you got on the plane, you came home, you got a game against the Padres, the stands are empty, nobody's there, it's hot. You wish you were still in bed. You don't want to be out on the field. And the team is losing and no one has any pop at all. So what would happen to try to get the troops all riled up? There would be a questionable call on the field. And then Tommy Lasorda would come out of the dugout and waddle right up to that umpire and start screaming and yelling and throwing every profanity he knew right in the umpire's face. Start kicking up the dirt, start flailing his arms around, jumping up and down. Then he'll go find another umpire and give it to that one, and then go find another umpire and give it to that one, get tossed from the game, the crowd is suddenly into it, and so are the players. It's a little trick that Tommy Lasorda and others used to use to let everyone know, okay, it's time to focus, it's time to pay attention, it's time to stop worrying about what's going on your phone, although back then they didn't have any cell phones. Don't worry about what's going on with the person seated next to you. Don't worry about what's going on in the newspaper. Focus on the field. And that's exactly what Alex Padilla did. He's not offended that he got thrown out. That was the goal. He wanted to get thrown out of that press conference. And I'll tell you, what I think is happening here, and I know this is going to sound conspiratorial, but I bet you I'm right. There's some person, some Svengali, some strategist somewhere at the home office in Sioux City, Iowa. And initially, they were telling all the Democrats, because the Democratic voters hate Trump. Trump derangement syndrome is real. You have friends, you have family who are Democrats. You know they can't stand Donald Trump. And right now, the Democratic Party is at historic lows in terms of approval ratings. Democratic voters don't like the Democratic politicians either. Their numbers are in the toilet. And they recognize this. They know they're unpopular even in their own party, and they know that their voters hate Donald Trump. So initially, someone somewhere said, all right, here's the deal. Everyone hates you, and they think you're bad at your job, and they think that you are insincere. And you always have to be sincere, even if you're faking it. So here's what you need to do. You need to go out there and swear as much as possible. Voters will think you are authentic if you drop the F word right and left. If the U.S. Senate sounds like a loading dock, that's when voters know you mean business.
What a bunch of bull.
So it's got to be F this and F that all the time. You need to make Andrew Dice Clay look like Jerry Seinfeld. So drop the F word every opportunity you have. And you know what? If you get really mad, drop a C-bomb too. Just go ahead. Indulge yourself. This isn't broadcast. This ain't even cable. This is HBO.
And that's a up system.
So let's all get filthy. And that's what they did. And it's not just the ones you would expect to swear, because there are people out there who are just naturally profane. I know this because Randy and I fit that category.
You should hear us during the commercial breaks.
But not everyone is like that. Not everyone swears all the time. And sometimes when you see someone swear who you know is not a swearer, it's painfully obvious. First of all, they always put the swear word in the wrong place. If you really wanted to get the point across, Randy, and you wanted someone to hand you a hot dog, and you needed to use profanity to get that point across, how would you say it?
Give me that bleeping hot dog.
That's right. If you don't know how to swear, you say, hand me that hot effing dog. And any of us who are actual swearers know that you are inauthentic. But that's what they do. Amy Klobuchar, she was swearing. That other one from Minnesota, she was swearing. Rashida Tlaib, profane 24/7. Gavin Newsom on that podcast, Randy has to bleep out half of what he says.
He's a filthy little boy.
So they tried that for a while, and that didn't work. No one bought what they were selling. So they said, okay, we have to figure out how to recalibrate here, because the swearing, while it's enjoyable, it's not helping us out in the polls. So what else can we do to get the point across that we're really mad and we hate Trump as much as the voters do in our districts? How about this? Let's all get arrested. Because think about the number of these Democrats who are showing up to these detention centers, like that fat one from New Jersey that got arrested for attacking the cops. You saw that, Randy.
Oh, yeah.
What was her name?
To look that up.
I think it was New Jersey. But she showed up with a bunch of them, but she was the one that was really going after the police officers, so she was the one that got arrested.
LaMonica McIver?
LaMonica McIver. So now she's facing charges for going at it with the cops. Then you have Gavin Newsom, who is daring the Trump administration to arrest him. How many times has he tweeted about that?
Oh, it's been constant. And he went on MSNBC, which he's been on about every 10 minutes the last week, and just said, arrest me, Homan, arrest me, like he's in a wrestling match.
He's starting to talk like Katie Porter. So he is literally begging on social media and on camera to be arrested. You have the Democratic staffers for Councilwoman Isabel Urado, who got arrested for attacking police officers at the protests here in Los Angeles. Although that really hasn't generated a lot of attention, which is kind of surprising, considering they work for a woman who is one of Karen Bass's allies on the council. And she's all over the cameras opining on what's going on right now in the streets. But they got arrested, and they're facing charges. And I think are they facing federal charges or local charges? Do we know?
I got to look that up.
Okay, so we have her. We have other Democrats like Judy Chu, who showed up to the detention centers and I think was hoping to get arrested, but they just locked the gates and they wouldn't let her in. You had Maxine Waters, who was trying to force her way into a federal building, and they slammed the door in her face. Almost knocked the wig clean off her head. Remember when Bill O'Reilly got in trouble for making remarks about her wig? He called it the James Brown. Fried, dyed, and laid to the side. So she was trying to get arrested. And then, I don't know if you saw the video, but after they slammed the door in her face, she was out there taunting the cops, telling the cops to shoot her. And she said, if you shoot at me, shoot me in the heart and don't miss. She's 86 years old and she's out there talking like that. But she was literally begging to be shot. Because that would make her a martyr. Imagine if Maxine Waters got shot. She'd have street cred like she was a rapper. And she knows it. She had no intention of getting shot, but she wanted to be out there taunting the cops, saying, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me, and you better not miss if you do.
Just talking like Omar from The Wire. You come at the king, you best not miss.
And then you have Alex Padilla, the MIT-trained engineer, who is one of the most sedate, boring politicians on planet Earth. He's a big guy, but he's boring.
He does interviews all the time, and we never use them because you would fall asleep while driving listening to them.
He looks like he's falling asleep while he's answering the questions. You have a guy who looks like he put Xanax in his cereal in the morning. His eyelids are only half open. Every so often you see someone who always looks like they're sleepy. Do you remember Mookie Wilson, who was a player for the Mets back in the 80s? Mookie Wilson looked like he was half asleep 24/7. I don't know if it's heavy eyelids. I don't know if it's just the structure of their face. But there are certain people who just always look like they're about to fall asleep. I have a cousin who's like that. You're having a conversation with her. You need to, snap your fingers like, hey, you still with me? I'm getting to the good part, I promise. But that's Alex Padilla, a boring engineer who is half asleep all the time. And then he shows up to the Christie Dome press conference, and he knows that the Democrats' numbers are in the toilet. So he figures, why not get thrown out? And if I get arrested, that's just the cherry on top of the sundae.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your head off.
So are you saying that this isn't completely authentic?
In the world of pro wrestling, they would call this a work. What you saw happen on TV today, in my opinion, was a work. This guy was trying to rattle the cage. This guy was trying to generate attention. This guy was trying to get arrested. And I think another aspect of this is because the Biden administration abused their power as much as they did, and they tried to use the Justice Department to incarcerate their political enemies. One of the images in the last campaign that became a very iconic photograph was the mugshot of Donald Trump. They thought that that would essentially make him too toxic to run. And what happened was the exact opposite. What happened was that photograph ended up on merchandise that he sold and became an image that was a rallying cry for his supporters. It was a rallying cry against lawfare. It was a rallying cry against the abuse of power from the Biden administration. It was a rallying cry for his resilience. And because of that, all of these other politicians are trying to copy him. But here's the thing. He didn't go out and try to get arrested. They just did it to him. It wasn't something that was manufactured. It was authentic. It's like how they missed the boat with the podcasting. Trump got a lot of the young guys to vote for him. white guys, Latinos, Asians, blacks. How did Trump do so well with this demographic? Well, he did the podcast. He went on Rogan. He went on Theo Von. He went on The Undertaker. He met all of those people where they were. And now you notice that Gavin Newsom and others are doing all the liberal podcasts now. They're on that Brian Tyler Cohen, Pod Save America. Gavin Newsom started 2 of his own podcasts.
Karen Bass sat down with Joy Reid, who's been demoted to just having a podcast inside her office yesterday.
And they're trying to do what Trump did that was successful for him. And I'm telling you, if it's a work, everyone knows it's a work. And what they're doing right now is a work.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
All right, let's throw it open to the phones at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Do you think that was a work? Do you think Alex Padilla was trying to get arrested, was trying to get thrown out of that press conference? I don't think there's any question. What say you at 800-222-5222? If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to listen to shows from earlier in the week or last week or the week before that, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can listen to today's show about Alex Padilla or listen to the show from 2 days ago about a different Padilla.
Those who are protesting want to get louder. They want to get more violent.
Alex Padilla was removed from a press conference earlier today. I think it's a work. I think he was trying to get arrested. What say you at 800-222-5222? 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Before we get to the calls, Randy, you have an update for us on our clown of a senator, Alex Padilla.
So, about an hour ago, this happened.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
And so he was removed and he was handcuffed, but he was not detained. He was not held. He had a 15-minute meeting with Kristi Noem after her press conference, and then he went outside the federal building to hold his own press conference, except he didn't want to actually take any questions. He just wanted to read a statement, and then he left.
Were you injured?
Just want to once again, for not just the community here in Los Angeles, but throughout the country, because there is a lot of concern, there is a lot of tension, there is a lot of anxiety, and a lot of people are beginning to make plans for what they may or may not do come this Saturday. I encourage everybody to please peacefully protest, just like I was calmly and peacefully listening in that press conference.
Is that what he was doing?
Calmly and peacefully listening until he tried to take it over and shut it down.
And attempting to ask a question. No violence, no vandalism. Please continue peacefully protesting, and that's all I will have to say today.
Did you hear that person? Why did you think you could ask a question at all? You're not a member of the press.
No, he's not. And he met with her for 15 minutes before?
He met with her 15 minutes afterwards.
So, okay.
Before this press conference, but after the takedown, she met with him for 15 minutes.
Okay, that's when you meet with politicians. Politicians don't show up to press conferences and ask questions.
He could have called. He could have scheduled a meeting.
Senator, can you give us any insight what you and the secretary said afterwards?
How are you going to do that? Why don't you disrupt it?
Christine, I don't know if you guys...
And then he left.
Yeah, well, because there is no explanation. If she was willing to put him on the calendar, there was no need to disrupt the press conference unless it was a stunt where he was looking for publicity, which is exactly what it was.
Woo!
800-222-5222. Do you think what just happened was a work? Let's go to George in Northridge. George, hello.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, John. Of course, it was all just, I don't know what you call it, just a stunt. Now, what I always like to see is like these guys, like in the Senate, I guess he's a senator, whenever they have someone talk out of order, there's a guy up there with a hammer and a gavel or whatever, pounding away saying you're out of order, out of order. Now, this guy Padilla, I mean, obviously he doesn't have the brains to know what he's doing, one. Two, if he's a senator, he should know you don't mess around with the feds. The feds don't play with kid gloves, like the locals do. And the second thing is, or the third thing I would like to see, whenever they have something like that again, they need Janice Hahn there to kind of keep the order.
That's your final warning.
Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Gus in Torrance. Gus, hello.
How are you, John? That was pretty funny. So, you remember the Truman Show? The movie?
Oh, yeah.
So, in real time, we are watching reality TV in our government or our politicians. Everything that they do is basically to get some kind of notoriety, whether they get reelected, whether they have a podcast, whether they get a reality show. And the unfortunate part is that we all have to suffer for it because they just really don't care what happens, even though they're saying they do. And the other thing, John, that really disappoints me with a lot of the media and a lot of news channels is that instead of focusing on the fact the last election that we had no good choice. We took the worst of the two evils. Why are we not focusing on a third party before the next election comes up? And I think the reason is because we are more consumed by reality TV of our government than we are of actually fixing our problems.
Well, I think that's an excellent point. And I don't know if you've seen any of those behind-the-scenes documentaries on how, for example, they used to write scripts for the television show Seinfeld. Basically, what they said they would do is for each episode, the main storyline would revolve around one of the characters. It's a George story or a Kramer story or a Jerry story or an Elaine story, whatever. But then each of them would have their own storylines going on in the same episode, and then they would all tie in together at the end. It's like that for reality TV. When they put together a cast for The Real World or Big Brother or one of those programs, you have the hunk, the whore, the brainiac, the one who starts fights with everyone. There's like 5 or 6 different variations of those characters, and they just plug people in to those roles. And then they essentially create storylines for each of them that produces conflict. And the more conflict that you produce, the more airtime that you get. And I kind of feel like right now with these politicians, they're almost as if they are reality TV show stars where they're trying to create their own conflict so their storyline is more interesting than the other storylines, so they'll get more attention and their careers will go farther.
Absolutely. I mean, I want to say I'm actually possibly creating a type of reality show, and the characters, you have to have enough characters. And before you're able to actually get someone to sponsor a reality show or to pay for it or fund it, they have to believe in the characters, and you have to market it to a certain market of people and see what your market's going to be. Here we have a perfect reality show because they're on 24/7, and they can just say and do whatever they want. And the crazier they are and the more conflict there is, the more news channels and media picks them up. And it's literally, to me, it's like watching the Truman Show, which you have 100,000 Trumans, and that's what we're watching.
Well, and this is one case where the older ones just aren't good at it. You can tell every time you see him on TV how much Chuck Schumer is struggling to keep up with this model. But then you look at the younger ones who grew up watching reality TV, like Jasmine Crockett or AOC or Ilhan Omar or the rest of them, exactly. And they know exactly what produces clicks. They know exactly what produces drama and interest and storylines. And they go out there and they hit the piñata every day, and every time they hit the piñata, candy comes out.
Absolutely true. Yeah, so anyway, in closing, I just hope that somewhere, sometime, that everyone in media, I know the advertisers, you get paid, you do this, you do that, but basically let's try to figure out by 2028 we actually have a choice as opposed to being forced a Democrat or Republican down our throats again. That's what I hope for.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir.
Absolutely.
Let's go. I knew that was coming, too. Let's go to Vicky in Salinas. Vicky, hello.
Hi, John. Thanks for taking my call. I'm enjoying this beautiful ride and listening to your wonderful show. And I forgot what I was going to say. Basically, you guys, the conversation you had with the caller before was great. But I'll add that I think Democrats, every time they open their mouths, they're just flushing their credibility right down the toilet. And now it's, hey, who's going to be the martyr for the week? And I had met Alex Padilla, and I met him in my labor classes at LA Tech a few years back. And it's right out of the labor, union's contract. I mean, not contracts, but playbook to act like you're the martyr, and get that attention and, make out like, oh, hey, let's get arrested. And we're going to rally the troops. It's bull.
No.
Vicky, you can't say that.
I apologize. I'm roused up.
Hey, you're having a good day.
Can I say the C word?
No.
Congress. Love you guys.
Happy hour starts early in Salinas.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Remember that show that was on cable some time ago? It was called The C Word?
Yes.
I thought, how in the world would any corporation allow a showrunner to name a program something that vulgar? And I thought that for years and years and years, and then suddenly someone told me at one point, that stands for cancer.
Yeah, that show's about cancer.
Is that true?
Yes.
How about any of the women on the program? Are any of them prickly?
I think that was a good time for a break, don't you?
All right. Before we go, though, a friend of mine who is a top engineer in the South Bay, in regard to Alex Padilla being an MIT-trained engineer, sent me the following text message. The MIT engineers I worked with were hothouse flowers full of themselves. Give me a Cal State Long Beach engineer any day. I think that's probably true and probably the experience of most people in that field. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Eric, the mailman, writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Hey, John and Randy. Alex Padilla is auditioning for the upcoming reality show Real Housewives of the DMV. Everything they do is performative. I got to hear this one more time.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
By the way, you can tell that he's asking his question while she's talking, so it's not like she went to questions and he's like, Alex Padilla, Senate, I got a question for you. No, he's interrupting her.
No, he just tried to take it over like he's one of those Palestinian protesters on the college campuses.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
Now, when you cut him off there, did he just stop at hands off or did he say hands off the merchandise?
Heads off.
I've been thrown out of better places than this.
Heads off.
I think I'm going to save that. I want to remember this moment.
Heads off.
I do believe if we do put that on the board, that would be the first Alex Padilla clip that's made the board because the man is so boring, he never says anything halfway interesting.
He's been a prominent U.S. senator for 5 years now and has not said a damn thing that is newsworthy until today.
Heads off.
And he's not one of these people that just hides out. he's on television every time you turn it on.
He does a hit with Alex Michelson, I think, every 6 weeks. And not once have I found one clip that was worth saving.
But it's not just Alex. He's constantly on the cable channels. He's constantly giving speeches on the floor of the Senate. I think he even does the Sunday morning shows on the networks.
Hands off!
I guarantee you there is a large portion of California that they saw this video today and had no idea that guy was our senator.
Well, here's the truth. He was the Secretary of State, and he was termed out. And he was about at the last stop on the subway of his career. And that's when we had an opening in the U.S. Senate. And Newsom, who is the most Machiavellian creature on planet Earth, thought that he could do himself a favor with Latino voters if he appointed a Latino U.S. Senator. Because if you look at how he did his appointments, the first thing that came open was that U.S. Senate seat, and then he nominated Padilla for that. So the Latinos got one seat. And then when his seat as Secretary of State came open, he gave it to Shirley Weber, who is a black female, then state assemblywoman from the San Diego area. So she got that. And then when the Attorney General seat came open, because Javier Baccaria got nominated by Joe Biden for Health and Education Services, that's when he nominated Rob Bonta, an Asian. He's a Filipino from Oakland.
Didn't even matter how compromised he was.
Seriously. If you're Newsom, do you think he even knew about any of that stuff?
Well, Newsom has pictures with the dongs, too.
That's true. But Bonta is a liability for him because at some point, that carriage is going to turn into a pumpkin, let's say. And we know it's just a matter of time. And as soon as Shang starts talking, let me tell you, there's going to be some sweat going on the brow of Mr. Bonta.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And probably his wife, too. So we'll see about that. All right, let's go back to the phones and welcome Travis in Oakland. Travis, hello.
Yeah, so obviously, absolutely, it was what the senator did. But I don't think it turned out the way he had planned. I think he'd wanted to walk out with his head held high, defiantly resisting. Instead, he got pushed around and thrown to the floor. He sounded like he was crying in the press conference afterwards. So kind of makes him look silly. And I just want to say, you know, he's lucky he wasn't a dog up there barking at Kristi Noem because it would have went a lot worse for him.
I don't know if I ever mentioned this on the program, but one time I had to go down to the state of Florida for the David Horowitz Freedom Institute, and I was the MC of the dinner. And I had to introduce Dwayne the Dog Chapman. And as he was walking off the stage after he finished his remarks and I came back on, I told him to stay away from Kristi Noem because that would be an occupational hazard. Let's go to Chris in Westlake Village. Chris, hello.
Hi, John. I was watching it on TV live, and I noticed that after they all spoke, they took questions from the press. So if he was a normal person, he would have waited and maybe been able to ask a question. So I thought, well, I got to put on John and see what he has to say about this. And when you came on and played the audio the first time, your laugh, all I have to do is think about that for the next week. And it's a good thing I wasn't drinking my coffee because you got to play that again. Just too funny. But anyway, I was looking real quick. I was thinking, well, hasn't it been illegal for employers to hire illegals for a long time? Because I remember. So
yeah, it has been, and we're up against a hard break, so we got to go. But thank you for the call. The Fix California hour is next. Don't you go anywhere.